Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. This evening, we have for you Miss Loretta Veney. But before we get started, we're going to have our Vice President, Dr. Christy Holden, do introductions and greetings.
Good evening, and welcome to our program tonight, sponsored by Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Iota Gamma Omega Chapter, and the Ivy Community Charities of Prince George's County, Maryland. The Women's Health Care and Wellness Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Wanda D. Smith and Co-Chair Rachel Robinson, have been tasked with supporting our Caregivers Community Impact Day. Women's Health Care and Wellness is target 2 of 5 of the international targets that Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has chosen to focus on. On behalf of our president, Cheryl W. Owens, who cannot be here tonight, I bring you greetings. I am Dr. Christy Holden, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here and to introduce Loretta Veney, who will be speaking with you tonight. But before I give her introduction, I'll turn it over to Wanda Smith, Chair of the Healthcare and Wellness Committee, to give a few rules for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. This evening, after Ms. Vinnie's presentation, we will receive questions in the chat box. We will also provide any additional resources for you at the end of the presentation. And we would also like for you to be so kind and complete our evaluation at the end of the program. Dr. Holden?
Yes, thank you, Wanda. What an awesome time we're going to have tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce Loretta Woodward Veney, an inspirational speaker who has delivered more than 300 speeches and presentations on dementia and caregiving since 2014, offering a wealth of information, encouragement, and humor to her audiences. Loretta is the author of Being My Mom's Mom, Refreshment for the Caregiver's Spirit, and Colors Flowing from the Mind. In 2006, after her beloved mother, Doris, was diagnosed with dementia, Loretta began learning everything she could about the disease, becoming a fierce advocate for her mom in the process. Loretta and her mom have been featured in articles in the Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today, the Washington Post, the New York Times, AARP, Caregiver Stories, as well as a PBS special. In 2019, Loretta was selected as a Trailblazer of the Year by Johns Hopkins Medicine. In November 2021, Loretta and her mom were featured in episode 6 of season 4 of Robin Roberts' Thriver Thursday series. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who is here, thank you for coming, and I turn it over to you. Look at that beautiful smile. Take it away, Miss Loretta Veney.
Yay, thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. And that the only problem with introductions is then you have to live up to it. So we're going to do our absolute best. And what I thought I would do tonight, I was talking to Dr. Holden earlier, and what I was saying, I give a lot of presentations, and sometimes I give a synopsis. And what I'm going to do for you tonight is, it's been a long time since 2006 when my mom was diagnosed. And so what I've tried to do is capture the 4 greatest caregiving lessons I have learned in being my mom's mom. So that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. And I tell you, if you are dealing with and caring for someone that has dementia, everybody remembers where they were when they heard that diagnosis. And, I'm a really positive person. So we're sitting across from the doctor, and he looks at us and says, "You are in the beginning stages of dementia." And my mother looks instantly terrified. I mean, who wouldn't? And she looks at me and says, "That's bad, isn't it?" And I'm trying to do my positivity thing. So I say, "There are worse things." And she looks right at me and says that quote that is right on the screen there: "Other than dying, what is worse than not being able to remember anything or anyone?" So, what do you say to that? Not a whole lot, let me tell you that. The only thing I promised my mother on that day was that, I had no idea what was going to happen with this disease. Nobody does. And every case is very different. But what I knew I could promise her, that whatever happened, we were going to do this together. And it's been 15 years and we're still going. So there you have that. So The greatest lesson, I think, number one, I can pass on to you when you are caring for other people. Lesson number one, forgiveness and patience are mandatory. I'm gonna give you some examples really of that. And I always say, the best way to, go into this caregiving mindset is, to forgive other people for things they've done in the past, things that they're going to say while you're caregiving that they really don't mean. And then we have to forgive ourselves for things as well. And, we have a very interesting story in terms of forgiveness. And my mother, if you look at the pictures from left to right, my mother and father got married in 1949. And for some reason, my mother had told us that there were no pictures of their wedding. But as you can see, there's at least one, and it's right there. And guess who that is in the middle there? I haven't changed a whole lot. My hair's all white now, but I had this really cool birth. I was born in my grandparents' house accidentally in Washington, D.C., in Petworth section, any of you D.C. people out there. And my mother thought she had indigestion. And by the time she realized it was not indigestion, I was out. And so the only people there were my mom and my dad. And that's pretty cool to be delivered by your father. So how cool was that? And then I was born in a blizzard as well. And so when the blizzard was over, my dad went to the store to get whatever, and he never came back. And I spent my entire, teenage 20 years looking for my father. But unfortunately, he and I never met. I just ended a 40-year career in security. My last 10 years at Homeland Security. I retired in June of this year to speak full time. And, I did find my father at one point. I knew where he lived, but he and I never met. Now let's fast forward to 2011. And my aunt in that picture holding my mother's hand, she thought she was dying. So she told me the family secret, that it was my mother that prevented us from having a relationship with our father. Now imagine my shock and awe, and I was devastated. My mother watched me for years look for this man and knew how much I wanted to, meet him and be with him and all that stuff. Anyway, the greatest gift I could give to my mother at that point, I remember falling on the floor and crying and rolling around and all that stuff. And then I got up after about 20 minutes or so. And I got up because at that point in 2011, there was no way my mother could have a conversation about all the questions I had. What were you thinking? Why would you do that? And so, there's no need to carry that with you. I had to let that go. I speak at a lot of churches. And one of the things they always say, talk about how you got to that forgiveness point with your mom. And the answer is, it was easy. Because I am all she had. And, you can be angry and all that, but she wouldn't understand any of that. So I had to accept the fact that you're not going to get answers to some of the questions you may want. The other thing I want to pass on to you is about guilt. A lot of us as caregivers, we have so much guilt. Either they don't live with us, or we live far away, or we haven't, done all the things we would like to do. Maybe we don't have the financial means. But if you're going to be a caregiver for the long haul, you really have to find ways, get with your good friends who might be on this call with you, and make sure you let go of that guilt. Because when we don't, that really lessens the opportunity for us to be the best caregiver that we can be. So forgiveness absolutely is mandatory. Now, I would ask for a show of hands if we were in person, but you can put it in the chat if you like. How many of you out there would say that you are very patient people? Some people would say, it depends. Oh, look at these hands going up. I love y'all. And, people always say, okay, you've been doing this for 15 years. How in the world are you, really patient? Well, I think there's really no point in how patient you really can be, but it does take some work, particularly with dementia. So I love these 4 things. In my book, I talk about 6, but tonight I'm going to give you the top 4. I think really does help you to build up your patience. And the first thing is know what your triggers are. And you know what I mean by that. Some people push our buttons intentionally, and that may be the case with some of the things that go on with dementia. But the more you know what your triggers are, the more you can, sort of stay away from them. So in my mother's case, for example, I used to, when she lived alone, I would get to her apartment for a doctor's appointment, and I would say, I'm here, come downstairs. Well, of course, with dementia, she would forget to come down. So you're like, so you park and you go up there. Well, because I knew that was a trigger for me, I just built in 30 extra minutes to every appointment. Da-da, easy. And so that kept me from losing my patience and all those kinds of things. The second thing is to wear your positive glasses. Now, most every disease you can think of is horrible, but we have to find some sort of way that the anger and the hurt and all that over these different kinds of diseases, particularly dementia, when they're going to eventually forget who you are, is to find some positivity, because that also keeps you from losing your temper. Now, I know I had the worst possible attitude about dementia, hated it with a passion, but it was killing me too. So I had to, do this whole switcheroo 360-degree thing, but that made me, so much more patient, so much more, positive, and just, trying to get the best out of each and every day. But I also realized that some of the challenges, particularly with dementia, can really cause us to lose patience. And so how I conquered that was to just visualize me conquering the problem. Actually, to be 100% honest, I would just visualize the whole day being over and getting rid of it that way. But I think, if we work on these things, we really can be much more patient than we probably ever realized we could be. And I think that's so important for us. Now, if you are dealing with someone with dementia and they have accused you of you stole their purse, their keys, you slept with the next door neighbor, all this stuff you did not do, that can be something that just causes you to lose your patience and yell and scream and all that. But here's the thing, with dementia in particular, arguing with them is the worst possible thing you can do. It's an argument you're never, ever going to win. And so we tried to find strategies in our family to deal with some of the things that would cause us to lose our patience. The first thing was my mom was always losing everything, her purse, her keys, all that. And she would always say, "You took my purse." The first seminar I went to, sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association, I got the best tip ever, and it is on the screen. Duplicate any items that they lose all the time. Woohoo! So that picture with all the purses represented what we did. And so we went to, Goodwill, Value Village, thrift store, everywhere, and bought every purse known to man. And it didn't even matter what color it was. But how we made it our mom's is we took her non-driver's ID, we photocopied it in color, laminated it, and put it in every purse. So when she started to yell, "Where's my purse? You took my purse," we would just reach under the table, in the closet, in the car, wherever we were, and would just whip out a purse, and she would open it and look in it and see her license in there, her little non-driver's ID, and she'd say, "It's mine." And then she would hug it tight like it was the last person on earth. Now, imagine how much more calm we added to the environment by, having all these extra items. I did the same thing with keys. I went to the dollar store, I bought 12 or so identical little keychains, and we had just done some renovation at my church, so none of those keys worked anymore. I put 2 or 3 keys on every key ring. Ta-da! Keys were everywhere. So whenever she started to yell for her keys, we would just whip out a set from wherever it was. And so these kinds of strategies, boy, they can get us out of some really serious situations. Now, if you have someone with dementia, boy, do they say the same thing over and over and over. So one of the things we did to conquer that, we kept my mom so busy so that she wouldn't repeat the same thing over and over. And if you're looking on that screen and you're saying, "Are those Legos in that picture?" The answer is yes. My mother hasn't known me since 2014. However, she remembers the hours and hours and hours that we spent building with Lego bricks when I was a child. And so I bought her all kinds of Legos and had those everywhere. And so we not only would give them to her house, in the car, wherever. And not only would she not repeat the same thing because she was so focused on the Lego bricks, she didn't talk at all. So it was like, woo! So really good things to come up with strategies to be successful. Now, if you do not know the term sundowning, it is a term that causes lots of confusion with folks with dementia, and it is a really sad thing. It works exactly as it sounds. As the sun starts to go down in the evening, which now is 5 o'clock or so, their behavior can change dramatically in some cases. You're like, whoa. And so imagine a 2-year-old without a nap. You with me? Yeah, that kind of behavior. And so we, tried to keep the confusion down, a lot of different ways. So look at that picture on the left there. My daughter years ago made this cake, and it was Easter Sunday. And my mother at that point was getting really argumentative. And so we had cake. And right after she finishes the cake, my mother says, "I'd like a piece of cake, please." You just had cake. I wouldn't know if I had cake. Really? Okay, so decision. You could either give her another piece of cake, which I probably wouldn't recommend because sugar with adults, just like children, probably not a good thing in the evening. And so we started taking pictures of every single thing we did. So you put the cake on the plate, take a picture. She eats a few bites, take a picture. The plate is empty, take a picture. And so she started to catch on later. So whenever she was like, "I didn't have so-and-so, you never give me ice cream." Here's the picture. So she was like, "Oh, well, did I at least like the cake?" "Yes, girl, you like the cake a whole lot." And so we just laughed and laughed and laughed about it. But it kept the arguing down to a minimum. And so it just went away eventually. And I used to always tell people, because the behavior can change in a dramatic fashion, I would always say, if you're going to visit my mother, please go before 3 o'clock. Because if you don't, I cannot be held accountable for any behavior that may occur. And so this one church member cautioned, "Oh, I went to see Miss Doris and she took all her clothes off." What time did you go?" "Like 4:30. "Did I not tell you to go early?" So that's what sundowning is. And as the day, goes by, the confusion can get, more intense and more intense. Now, the picture on the right is interesting. My mom is currently in hospice. They've been telling me she was dying since March 23rd, but clearly she did not get the memo because she's still here. And I'm grateful for that. So there we are. There she is in the hospice bed. We still play ball. We still do everything. I'm not sitting around here waiting for her to die. And so we just have a good old time, every day and, go with that. So, one of the things that you can certainly do to increase your level of patience and to lessen their confusion is to keep them as engaged as possible. So that lesson number 1, forgiveness and patience, pretty mandatory. Lesson number 2, this one can be a little more difficult in some ways. And so I've come up with prepare for everything and be ready for anything, because, don't know what's coming. Now, I'm looking at some of the pictures of you folks on the call, and we're all ages. And so one of the things I want to really suggest for you is, no matter how old you are, well, I'm too young to be talking about people dying. I cannot encourage you enough to have family meetings. Ask your elder family members, mom, dad, grandma, auntie, where do you want to live when you get older? The time when they can no longer make that decision is not the time to decide where to put them. And we were lulled into complacency because of that woman on the screen right there, the little lady with the fan. That's my great grandma Lou Ray. She was turning 100, her picture. Now, she still lived alone when she was 100, cooked every day. At 101, we had to force her to move to assisted living. You know how we did that? She fought us every step of the way until we told her they were men at the assisted living. Then she was ready to go. So, girl, there's hope for us when we get old. I'm not mad at grandma, but here's the thing. There was nothing wrong with her at all. So I thought my mother was going to live by herself till she was 101. Didn't work out that way. And when my mom was diagnosed at 77 years old, I was thinking, I'm bad in math, but I was thinking this woman is going to outlive my money. That's how I ended up writing the book. But I want you all to think about, don't be complacent like we did. Let, everybody participate in the discussion. Sometimes the siblings fight. That's not where mama want to be. If the mama or dad can say where they want to be, the siblings are not left to fight it out when mom or dad gets sick. So please have family meetings as early as possible to discuss these kinds of things. The biggest thing I think we have to prepare for, no matter what the disease is for the heartbreak that comes along with it. They get to points where they can no longer do all the things that they used to be able to do. And there's a variety of different heartbreak with dementia. The picture on the left there is my sister on her 61st birthday. And we had these stupid hats on and all that. We knew it was gonna be my sister's last birthday. She died of MS. And one of the hardest decisions you have to make with somebody with dementia is what to tell them and what not to tell them. I decided not to tell my mother that my sister had died. My mother's neurologist was very much in favor of that. And people were like, oh my God, what do you mean you didn't tell your mother your sister died? Well, what would we expect her to do with that information? It would be my luck that she would remember it every day and cry every day. Not what I wanted. So I chose to not tell her. And then if she ever asked me about it, I would decide what to say then. If she said, you know, where's Renee? I would address it. She never once, not one time, asked about my sister, not ever. By the time my sister died, she still remembered me, but she had forgotten she had 2 kids. I just left well enough alone. Although there are pictures of all of us on her dresser, she would look at the picture and she said, I look good in those pictures. Who are those people? You'd be like, it's just us, don't matter. But it's like, wow, that's how amazing this disease is. And I'm very comfortable with my decision not to tell her. So when you're making decisions about caregiving, you know, the people who complain the most about what you're doing or not doing are the people that are not helping you anyway. So I choose not to listen to the people who don't really have a say, but I think that's the best way I chose to deal with it. Got a lot of shocks last year. Who wasn't shocked in the year of COVID? But boy, my mom, you know, I'd say she has 10 lives. But she really almost lost her life in August of last year during the shutdown and all that. She fell, and because she, at this point, late stages of dementia, she no longer feels pain. So she had fallen. I took her to patient first to get an x-ray. They said everything was fine. 2 days later, they tell me her clavicle is broken. And when she started having difficulty breathing, we actually thought she had COVID. And so we decided not to take her to get the arm fixed. We called the ambulance instead. Turns out she had 4 broken, not just broken, then things were shattered. And you feel like the worst child ever, that your mother was like that for 4 days and you did nothing. And I think some of those things you have to take it in, but don't get too high or too low about the good things or the bad, because you have to have that even keel to survive, particularly this long, 15 years. And so, you know, we have to learn to pace ourselves. You know, when she fell, I didn't go over there and curse everybody out. My mother lives in a group home in Temple Hills. And it was just it could have happened to anybody, could have happened to me. And so, you know, she went to reach for something and she stumbled and she, you know, kind of fell into a wall sort of thing. Nobody's fault. And, you know, she's 92. Of course, she's going to fall. So I tend to not take things too seriously, and, you know, unless I have to. One of the toughest decisions I think we ever make for our parents, even if we're following our patients' wishes, is what happens at the end of their life. So on March 23rd, I got a call that they had rushed her to the hospital. I was told she had days to live. So I signed her up for hospice. The hospice man shows up in an hour and we fill out, we were very, my mother wanted to do hospice. My grandparents, you know, did it, and my aunt. And so my mother watched that and said, that's what I want to do. I don't want tubes. I don't want anything. I just want to do hospice. Okay, good. So there we go. And I insisted they take her back to the group home. And as I said, 6.5 months later, she's still here. Now she is slowing down for sure, but for today, she's still here. So I think, you know, as I said, the heartbreak piece is something that we really have to get in a good rhythm. I know that sounds terrible, but if not, you know, sort of the pain for some of the heartbreak really could kill us. I say that, but I want to, if I don't stress anything tonight, I want you to think about way after we finish tonight. If you are a caregiver, have a plan, but also have a backup plan. I'm gonna say that again. Have a plan, but also have a backup plan. See that guy in the middle picture there, best man in America, I'll just say that. I was married to him for 30 years. We missed 31 by a couple weeks. He did everything for my mother. They were inseparable. He was a retired DC cop. And because he was retired and I wasn't, they went to lunch, they went shopping. He took her to all her doctor's appointments. They had a good old time while I was working every day. And 5.5 years ago, we were on vacation in New York and he died. I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do without this man? Love of my life and this woman's best friend. Thankfully, I ain't tell her he died either. in the worst, in the cruelest of all kinds of ironies and coincidences and all that, my sister and my husband died on the same day, 5 years apart, July 17th. So call me on the 17th. It's always a bad day for me. But I had no backup plan for Tim. I am lucky in the sense that my church got a support group together just for me, my two best friends in church. And one of the things they asked me, this is the coolest thing ever. One of the things they asked me to do was write a list of all the things that Tim did for my mother. And each one of them took a thing. And that's how I survived it. So I think the more we plan in these family meetings and things, we have a backup. So now I got the backup to the backup to the backup. And I did not know, for example, that because my name was not on the title of his vehicle, that I couldn't drive it. I had this little teeny Cadillac that my mother couldn't get in. He had this big SUV he had told her. I had to buy a car before I could even bury him because, you know, my mother had a doctor's appointment. I could not, you know, change because we'd waited 6 months for it. But you know, who plans for that stuff? And so I think we learn these lessons as we go. So now I got a backup plan for everything. So if you get that walker, you know, for mom or dad, like, yeah, woohoo, got the walker. Okay, now what's your plan for the wheelchair? Because that's probably going to come too. So always be thinking of the next thing, the next thing. And the picture on the end there, Janet Wright, boy, that Janet, she's been with us for years. She's my mother's primary caregiver at the group home, Life Springs Elder Care. And they're both looking really tired in that picture because my mother had escaped and we got her back. And Janet's trying to get an explanation. Miss Doris, why did you run away? And so, yeah, I don't know what her explanation was, but yeah, we got her back. And again, you know, you just sort of try to plan for those kinds of things. So have a backup plan and a backup plan. This slide represents a lot of the things that I didn't do all that well. When I first talked to my mom about, you know, you have to move, you can't live by yourself. You know, she had turned on the stove and left it, all the things they start to do when they're indicating they can no longer live alone. And so, but have these conversations with, you know, your loved ones. And I love some of the stuff on the AARP website. They have conversation starters. How do you bring it up? Dad, you really shouldn't be driving anymore. And those are difficult conversations, but we have to have them. I also encourage you, if you don't know where all your loved ones' important documents are and you're the power of attorney or any of that stuff, please find them. The time that somebody called you from the hospital to say your mother has, you know, hours or days to live, come over with the DNR, and you're rummaging through stuff, everything about my mother's on this phone, every single document, an x-ray, all that, everything is on my phone. And so know where they are. And I know financial conversations are difficult to have as well. But some of my friends, you know, people old like me, just found out their parents had a second mortgage on the home. Uh-oh, that's never a good thing. So find out all these kinds of things to prevent problems, because that's not good. The number one thing I did wrong in my mother's case, I thought was going to ruin us. I list these things, the Department of Aging, you know, knowing about waiver programs. I didn't put my mother's name on the list in Maryland for financial assistance. My mother's retirement check is only $1,300. You can't buy a thing with that. And so I knew, as I said earlier, she was going to outlive my money. And I'm not sure what my problem was, but she was diagnosed in 2006, but I didn't put her on the list for financial assistance till 2009, 3 years later. What was I thinking? Guess how many people were on the list when I put my mother's name down? How about 23,869 people? It took 8 years, 6 months, and 3 days, but who's counting, to get on that list? And in between that, you know, in between that time, those 8 years, I paid between $400 a month added to her rent to $1,500 a month. Now, when Tim was here, easy peasy. A little more of a struggle once Tim was gone, doing the $1,500 by myself. So please, in terms of the financial assistance, tell your friends, sign up for every program right now. Oh, I don't want to sign up for the pens or the diapers and the wipes. I don't want to sign up for all that right now. She doesn't really need it. By the time your name comes up, she will need it. Trust me on that. Sign up for every program. And I hope you all know what respite assistance is. If you've been caregiving for a while, respite is you go off, just as it sounds, and you rest and you know, put your feet up and all that. There are a lot of programs within Prince George's County in Maryland in general, that provide respite assistance. A lot of these wonderful assisted living places going up, Tribute at Melford, that's over there in Bowie. All of these places have respite assistance. You can go put your feet up, somebody else take care of mama while you recharge. But please sign up for everything that you possibly can when you think of it, or when the Department of Aging lets you know what all the services that are available, because so much stress is added to our lives when we are worried about where we're going to get this or that we're going to need. So all part of preparation. Okay, them legal documents, yes, indeedy. Know where they are too. I am every power of attorney for my mom, medical and financial. She also had a living will, of course. Now let's talk about that trust for a second. I told you I'm all my mother has. Now, when I was married and all that, you're not thinking about trust. Well, when my husband died, my daughter was my beneficiary. The elder care attorney I talked to suggested that I put my house in a trust for my mother. So if I got COVID, I got hit by a metro train tomorrow, the sale of my house would pay for my mother's care. Then after my mother died, then my daughter and granddaughter would get what was left. Because my daughter, she liked to shop. She'd be at the mall and my mother would be homeless. And so having a house in the trust means my daughter gets nothing until my mother dies. And so, like I said, my mother trying to outlive everybody. So that could go on for a while. The POST is the physician's order for life-sustaining treatment. And most medical communities right now value that more than the DNR. But they both are very valuable, and know where all of those kinds of things are. Now, most of us would say, in terms of COVID, without technology, where would we be? Well, I've used technology well before COVID. The little robotic dog on the left there, that thing. My mother, she was terrified of dogs when we were little, and it's just a robot. They all think they're real. Whenever I give she has one in my house and one at the group home where she is, and you turn the dog on, and his little head moves around, and his tail wags, and he barks. And all that. And she, because she thinks he's real, he's like, he's not going to pee on me. Is he? Like, no, I just took him out. So yeah, it's really a cool thing. And Alexa in the middle. Think about all the things you can do with the Alexa, especially if your loved one doesn't live with you. They can read stories to them, all of that. And one of the things we learned about my mother early on was that even after she could no longer follow a story, if, Alexa was reading Moby Dick or whatever to her, or to one of the other residents, my mother was mesmerized by Alexa's voice. So she would just sit there. She's usually a wanderer, walking around the group home all day long, all night. But when Alexa is talking, my mother just sits there. So they learned they could fold laundry and make lunch and do all kinds of things. So a lot of time technology can allow us to catch our breath. There we are after the rib broken thing. She had some seizures, and that's her neurologist talking to her, and you can see mom doing FaceTime. She was doing FaceTime well before COVID. And, she wasn't talking to me in that picture. The caregivers, one of the caregivers was calling her on her day off. So everybody loves my mama. I'm not giving her away, but everybody loves mama. So, all the technology, think about how it can help you. The first time mama escaped, I got her that little ID bracelet on the left. And it's really cool. It comes with a tool. You put it on, which means it will not come off. We actually just cut it off about 3 months ago. It was starting to break her out. It's called Road ID, ROAD ID. Really cool service. I absolutely loved it. And it had been on for probably 6 years when we finally cut it off. So very helpful tools. So if somebody find her, walking down the street, they can call that number and we get her back right away. So those things are amazing and gives you peace of mind. But she escaped after she got that too. So I had to put a GPS in the girl's shoe. That's how bad it got. So if you turned around, my mama was gone. This thing is called Smart Soul, SOLE. You're looking at the day I got it in 2018. And it is so cool. It comes with 2 insoles, just like you buy at CVS. One has the tracker, one does not. And you put them in their shoes, and I picked that. There's so many GPSs out there. I picked that one because her shoes are the only thing my mother doesn't take off. There was a woman I really wanted to support. She started this GPS company after her autistic son got out of his middle school and was killed by a car. And it was called Angel Sense. And I really wanted, but it's like reminds you of not so much bigger than this cough drop. It was a key fob kind of thing. But my mother, if she had found that, she was like, that's not mine, and throw it away. And all these things are about $200. But it's the best $200 or $300 you'd ever spend, because, the tracker, finds them, instantly. And so you get a monthly bill, you pay the thing for the cost for the tracker, which is about $200 or so. And then the monthly fees, just like your cell phone, like $28, $29, something like that, just a one-line phone kind of thing. And the only stipulation is it must be in an area where there is great cell phone service. That's how it works, cell phone service. So if you don't have great cell phone service, that wouldn't be the thing for you. So that's the advice for that. So technology can really, really save you. So I hope that helps you. So prepare for everything. Be ready for anything. Lesson number 2. In terms of lesson number 3, I think I laugh a lot. And I know that the laughter has gotten us through a lot of things, for sure. And so I tell people, humor really does help you hold on to, to hope. I mean, obviously, when you hear the diagnosis of dementia in particular, how it's going to end. They're going to die. You know that. And there are, obviously other diseases like that as well. And, the thing I want to say about humor before I show you the first picture is to say, I just want to be clear that there's nothing funny about any diseases. We're laughing at the situation and not at the person. So that's one of the things I want to say. So here's one of the funniest things I think that's ever happened. The New York Times came to talk to us in 2017. And my mother was famous for, even after she forgot me in 2014, she could still pick up her high school yearbook from Cardozo, 1947, and name everybody, way after she knew me. So the guy says, oh, well, what was your favorite club? So she picks this, the Spanish club. He says, well, who are these women? So she's naming all the girls in the picture. Then he says, oh, there's a boy in the back. Who's that boy? She says, I don't know. I don't know him. We weren't friends. I don't know. He said, well, that's so weird. You can name all the girls, but you don't know the boy. She said, nope, don't know him. I don't know why he wanted to be in a club with all girls in the first place. Okay, well, this is what I call selective dementia, because she knew that boy in the picture for at least a minute, because that boy is my father. So there you go. His name is Lorenzo Anthony. They named me Loretta Ann. So I mean, come on. So, and when the first time she got out and we had to call the police, they wouldn't give her back to me because she would tell you in a minute. She never been married. She ain't got no kids. I'm like, okay, I'm standing right here, but okay. So yeah, I had to show the Prince George's County police officer like 500 pictures of my mama on my phone before he would give her back to me. And so, you crack up laughing at these things because it's, hysterical. Now look at the coloring book. Dr. Holden, told you that I've done 3 books. The third book is a coloring book that my mom and I did together. And, it was for her 90th birthday. She got so frustrated with the little teeny line she couldn't stay within. So I made these big shapes and it's really cool. And I put some of her favorite sayings. So because she helped me with the book, I put her picture on the back of the book with mine. So she's sitting, as you can see, out on the patio doing our outdoor visits. And she's looking at the back of the book. And she says, well, what are you doing on the back of my book? I'm like, girl, you wouldn't even have a book if it wasn't for me. She is just the funniest thing, ever. It's like, this woman is a mess. She's just a mess. And every time when you think she's no longer talking, because she says very little these days, but when she says something, you better be paying attention, because most of the time it's absolutely hysterical. And I think, we have lived this disease by being able to, laugh or smile, even through our tears at times, that's for sure. And it really can be healing, but so is hope. And I love these pictures here. I belong to If you're familiar with Dementia Friendly America, I belong to the northern sector of Prince George's County. We have a meeting tomorrow at Silverdonna in Greenbelt, and we do some amazing things. We have a lot of caregiver days. We did a lot of drive-through caregiver services where we gave away gift cards and all kinds of things that we, did the best we could during COVID. And I think that's really cool. The picture with the stamps, that's the Alzheimer's stamp. If you are not familiar with that, please get them. It was a 2-year stamp and we got it extended for a lifetime stamp, just like the breast cancer one, which is absolutely phenomenal. It was one of the last things Congressman Lewis signed before he died, because all things usually expire. And I have a grateful journal too. And I really write down everything that she does that surprised me. And she just, that day she refused. I was having a terrible day. And then I watched Wonder Woman, as Facebook calls her, pull herself up, the stairs. It was just amazing to watch. And I think that's true. And the hope on the left, my best friend gave me these 2 photo pillows, one for me and one for Mom to hug during COVID when I couldn't see her. We were separated for 99 days, which was the longest I could, we had ever been separated. I had to look through, at her through the glass. And I hated that. But because I was honest about how bad I was feeling, those pillows really came in handy. That was for sure. So the hope really is healing. And the last lesson I'll leave you with before we take questions is, have no expectations. Meaning, you spend all this money or time and you go to visit your loved one, or, they're just having a bad day and you had all these expectations and you're so disappointed afterwards. I just try to go into every situation like, well, we'll see what happens. That keeps me not getting too high, as I said at the beginning, and not too low. The other thing that I refuse to do that other people do is I don't think about all the stuff she can no longer do. I'd be dead if I did that. So I choose to focus on all the things she can still do. It's as simple as that. So there she is, top left. Until probably 3 months ago, she could still write her name. D-O-R-I-S. Takes her 25 minutes, but she could do it. And just like I said, last couple of months or so, she hasn't been able to. The picture on the bottom left is a game called We See, Q-U-I-S-I. It means yes, yes in French and Spanish. It's just a box of 300 and some pictures, and it's a conversation starter. Like, and she's paying attention. One of the pictures is of an ice cream cone hitting the ground. And my mother's response to that picture was, uh-oh, because she recognized ice cream cone on the ground is not a good thing. And these matching things, I'm a Lego instructor. I'm probably the only one which is our Lego connection. And I made, now that she can't build like she used to, now I made patterns in Lego bricks for her to match. If you can see that smile on her face, she is just having the time of her life. You can't tell this woman she's dying. So yeah, there you have it. And that was maybe 10 days ago. And I just took some of her yesterday too. But I just focus on, what we can still do. And, she surprised me by doing a puzzle in Christmas of 2019, which I was shocked about. And you heard about the Thriver Thursday thing. Who knew that would happen? There's Robin Roberts talking about me as if we're old friends. And the picture on the bottom left, that's all the filming. They filmed us for 2 days here where I live in Clinton, in DC, in the house where I was born, the church where I go on Capitol Hill. So we went all kinds of places. And, I would never have expected that to be in my future, yet I did my best to represent all caregivers and, all of the struggles that we go through as we care for our loved ones. And I think that's so key. So when I am asked why I came up with that motto of have no expectations, it's because of this story. So if you see the police cars right there, that is never, ever a good sign. It means she's missing. And so as we're, searching for her everywhere, she is found by 2 women who notice that blank stare. So they pull up, in front of her, and they get out and they say, hi, what's your name, Doris? Doris, do you know where you live? No. Doris, is there anybody we can call for you? No. Okay, so they put Doris in the car with them. They give her a bottle of water, it's really hot, and they give her a cookie, meaning she's never gonna get out that car again. So she's eating her cookie. And for the first time in 5 years, my mother says, Loretta. They says, oh, who's Loretta? My mother says, I don't know. So it was a mother-daughter. So the 20-year-old gets on her phone and she Googles, who would do this? She Googles Loretta in Maryland. And up pops the Washington Post article about us. It is a huge picture. Oh my God. And it has my whole name, Loretta Woodward Veney. So the 20-year-old gets on Facebook. She types Loretta Woodward Veney, my name pops up. She sends me a message that says, hey, my name is Tiffany. I think I got your mama. Oh my God. That is unbelievable. So my motto became, you couldn't make this up. My friends in Homeland Security, where I worked for 10 years, said, hey, you want to see the video of your mother? She got across 210. Y'all know 210. She got across the 4 lanes of 210 without getting hit by a car. She was like, you want to see the video? I'm like, nah, I don't want to see it. I don't know how people didn't hit my mother or whatever. She got 1.25 miles. Who does that at 90? So I was like, you know what? This is that you can't make this up thing. And so that became my motto. If you go into whatever your caregiving day is going to be and just say, I'm going to just let it come. I'm going to have no expectations and we're just going to see how this plays out. And I say that because, none of us knows what is on the road ahead. However, if we kind of just pace ourselves on the road, it can be a little easier. It's still going to have those twists and turns. That's why I love that graphic. It's always going to have twists and turns. It's how we sort of react to them. So what I hope I've done is to provide for you, 4 of the greatest lessons that I've learned. And I hope you can take pieces of each of them to try to avoid some of the mistakes that I made, but also to experience some of the successes that we have had. So I hope that you found at least 1 or 2 things you can take away. And I'm just so thrilled to have been here with you all this evening. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to put my information in here too. Type this in the chat real quick. I probably should put my glasses on so I do not type the wrong, and I do return all phone calls. People say, will she really answer the phone? The answer is yes. I called 3 people back today too. That is my email, and my website is just as easy as simply lorettaveney.com. And it has all of my stuff on there, all the presentations that I do and all the activities that I do.
Well, Ms. Vinnie just placed her contact information in the chat.
Yes.
I just wanted to let you all know there's been a plethora of information shared this evening. If you weren't able to capture all of that information, we will provide information at the end to you so you can have. So I just wanted to make sure that if you weren't able to write down all of the information,
I know.
share links as it relates to the Maryland order for life-sustaining treatment, as well as information for road ID. Does anybody have any questions at this time? I know I said we would be taking them at the end.
And I'll write down the smart soul too. Oh, it would help if I spelled it right. Smart soul. There you go.
Yeah, I placed it in there earlier.
I get that question a lot too.
So Tina Robinson asked, Ms. Vinnie, how do you remain so positive?
Yeah, I get that a lot. So this is gonna sound crazy, but I believe I was born this way. And one of the things that I didn't share that certainly has made me the person I am. And when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was really sick and they kept saying I was gonna die. I just never did. I was in the hospital probably 40 sometimes. I had 21 operations. And what I learned from that is I'm supposed to be here. So I believe that I had all of those challenges of my own when I was younger to prepare me for, first, my sister died of MS, and my sister was diagnosed the same year as my mom. And for a while, I took care of both of them. And so I thought that long haul of caregiving, you really needed some preparation. So I think my own health was that. And the fact that I am still here is, I know, the key to, the last 20 years of my life, the positivity that comes with that. I do realize how fortunate I am that I survived what they said I would not. So I think it comes from that. But I also think it was really good. It took me 13 years to get well. So the 15 years of my mom, I sort of had learned to do that pace myself thing. So the other family members, Irma, that's such a great question. I only have 2 cousins left. Once my sister died, I do have a niece, but she has 2 kids. My daughter, my granddaughter spends a lot of time with my mom, and she just heard the phone buzz and she just called. And my daughter's really busy, so I haven't ever really had to ask my daughter to do anything for me. She's my stepdaughter, but I've had her since she was 8. So I haven't had that. But the 2 cousins I have, if I really need something, if I'm traveling, I speak all around the country. So there have been times I've been gone more than a week where I would ask one of my cousins to go check on mom or something like that. But other than that, it's really just me. So, but it is a great family. And just honestly, I think some of the families I meet with, I've been a mediator for quite a few families where there's a lot of disagreement. So sometimes having a lot of family members involved isn't the greatest of things unless they're all on the same page. But I think certainly what my support group did, where you give a task to each person, I think when the assignments and the tasks that need to be done as far as caregiving, I think the more you spend time focusing on how to dole those out, the better it is. There are lots of apps for that too. Caring Village and those kinds of things, Carely, Carely, those things assign who's going to visit mom on what day, so everybody doesn't go on the same day. So there are a lot of technology that we can use to involve an entire family and say, okay, who's going to pick up the prescription today? And Betty raises her hand or puts her name on the list. And so there are a lot of these apps that can really say, if you type in whatever phone you have, you type in caregiving in your app store, a whole lot of stuff comes up. So don't try to do it by yourself.
Ms. Vinnie,
The puzzles are great. Try puzzles to remember, Irma, if you're doing puzzles with somebody with Alzheimer's, they come in 36, 24, 16 pieces. And so if they're used to doing 1,000 or 500 piece puzzles, they can still do it, just get the smaller ones. So the Silver Diner meeting is, there's a large organization called Dementia Friendly America. It's just like it sounds. There are various chapters throughout the United States. And there, most places, it is divided by county. So what they chose to do in Prince George's County is there are 3 counties, Central, Northern, and Southern, I guess. And I belong to the Northern one. And what we try to do is support caregivers in whatever way we have. So that's why I mentioned the caregiving drive-through things that we've done. But they provide a lot of, and they work out of, the city officials in Greenbelt are the ones that are the leaders of Dementia Friendly America in North Prince George's County. So that's what that is. Caring for loved ones out of state. I would say chat with A Place for Mom, who can provide you with either names of the best home care type solutions in that area. Home Instead was just bought by a company called Honor. I just did a presentation for them a week ago in California. And they are amazing at helping with anybody out of state. You could also call the Department of Aging in that particular state and county. And they are the #1 sort of go to a lot of these places, we don't know. The book of group homes, for example, like the one I used to pick for my mother, came from the county agency, and you can call them and visit them, but they have all the source of information. So hope that helps.
And Tina, I would say also with that Department of Aging in that particular state, they would also have the current, Ms. Vinnie spoke of the Maryland Order of Life Sustaining Treatment, because that's available in Maryland, but you may have a loved one that lives in another state, and it might be called Post, or it might be
for
else.
Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania, So they have different initials, but if you do that life sustaining treatment, it'll come up in that state. That's a great question about the, I saw it scroll by about how did I pick the assisted living? So 2 keys for me, and this is just me. So a code word for me is when I visited some of the assisted livings, the group homes. I wanted a group home for my mom. My mom doesn't like people. So I wanted something small, and it's very similar to the floor plan of my house. And so the code word I always look for is, well, one of the rules we have here is that you have to call before you come. Not gonna put my mama there. That's code for we're gonna get her all cleaned up before you show up. So yeah, I don't do the whole calling before you come. I've been at 4 a.m, I've been at 10 at night, I've been all kinds of things. So the group home thing, the best thing I could say is to really do a lot of research into them, visit them all. I love the fact that you can just go and visit, make an appointment, chat with people. They'll give you the names of other residents, families, so you can talk to them as well. And, be comfortable with it, because, and you can change, but in the dementia story, the worst thing you can do is move a person with dementia, and unfortunately for us, when my mother's name did finally come up after 8 years on the waiver participation list, I did have to move her, because the group home where she was, that lady had been participating, but when the last person who was participating died, she didn't renew it. So I had to move her, but my mother did very well in the move. So I was just lucky in that sense. But, these are decisions that you have to make. I was tempted to leave her where she was and continue to pay the money, but, she's still here. So that would have been a lot of money. And what the waiver program does is they accept the rent as, whatever they make as full pay. So I think that is one of the keys for us too. So cleanliness, all that in the selections. I mean, you can eat off the floor at Life Springs Elder Care, I have to say. It is absolutely amazing. And the caregivers, they love this woman as much as I do. And so I have no qualms, no hesitation, no nothing about the care that my mother is provided. So. Anything else? Y'all were awesome. Miss Debbie, I see you smiling. I was like, oh, she's got the best smile. That's so cool.
Ms. Veney, Kim Elder put in the chat that this is such an informative presentation with relevant resources, but has anyone ever noted to you that your lessons or nuggets share that your lessons can apply to caretaking and other strategies for managing other life experiences?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And, that's really a good point, because I use some of that. I think the presentation people love the most, especially during COVID, is I do this thing called Lifting the Spirit of the Caregiver. And we do a lot of, activities in that. And there are a lot of life lessons in that too. And I think, I needed my own spirits lifted, after my husband died. I wasn't sure how well this was going to go without him. And he would be, my sister too, they would be stunned with how well I've done. I did cry a lot after the Robin Roberts thing, because he would have been freaking out to be here for that. So, we miss him so much doing that. And, he was around when the Washington Post article was being written, and he was going to buy 100 copies, and he died 2 days before it came out. And the woman that wrote it went back in to say that he had died very suddenly. And that was just crushing. Support groups for young caregivers. Yeah, if you can Google that. There are quite a few. There's Young Cancer People. One of my godsons, who just turned 20, has a sarcoma. And so there's a sarcoma group for very young people. And Johns Hopkins has quite a few group homes, and they're sort of done by age. So yeah, if you Google that, it does come up. There are lots of things for folks who are ill and then folks who are caring. And the millennials, yeah, they're going to outpace us all in terms of caregiving. There's so many folks in their 20s and 30s who are caring for their grandparents or their parents. And so a lot of experience out there. So thank you all so much. I appreciate your comments. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. I do. Thank you all so much. Miss Wanda, anything else for me?
No, I was going to add that there's also one, if you Google, at the First Baptist Church of Glen Arden on the third Saturday. So there's one there. So
Yes.
there's other resources.
Almost every church has, all kinds of caregiving groups. So if you don't belong to a church, just Google the one nearest you, and it's either under caregiving ministry or something like that. But almost all of them, like I said, I speak at a lot of churches, and it's primarily to their caregiving support groups, just for people to, get encouragement. That's, really what it comes down to. So that's, But I think we have to just focus on, what we can do. There's a lot we can't do in, whatever the caregiver responsibilities are we have, but we do the best we can with what we have. And that's really all we can ask for. So
Very, very true.
I'm so excited. You all,
Yes,
thank you for having me.
If you haven't gotten a chance, please complete the evaluation that's in the chat. I want to say thank you so much, Ms. Vinnie, as we celebrate National Caregivers Month and actually Caregivers Day. You've been such an inspiration, and it shows. And we are really excited that you were able to share your information with us. Robin Roberts got it right when she came to Clinton and featured you. You are such a wonderful person, and to be able to share your journey has been inspirational. I just want to remind everyone before I turn it back over to Dr. Holden that we will send out some of this information for you because it's been a lot. There's been a plethora of information, and we want to make sure that you are able to access that. Dr. Holden.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining Iota Gamma Omega chapter this evening for this very worthwhile discussion. Ms. Veney, you are truly inspiring. I am
thank you.
so moved. I'm going to probably be up crying all night. This is really so inspiring. For 51 years, Iota Gamma Omega has been serving the residents of Prince George's County through programming, mentoring, community outreach, and scholarship. Our work is in collaboration with the Ivy Community Charities of Prince George's County, who is now in their 35th year of service. Please follow Iota Gamma Omega and Ivy Community Charities on your social media platforms to stay abreast of any upcoming events. We hope that you have found this program helpful and will access the resources shared in this presentation. Please help us create needed programs by completing the evaluation. The link is in the chat, has been put in there several times. I just want to thank you again, and thank you to our chairpersons and the Women's Healthcare and Wellness Committee. Thank you, Ms. Wanda Smith and Rachel Robinson and the committee for bringing this to our bringing this program to us tonight. We really appreciate it. And
thank you all much. And don't hesitate to need something.
Thank you. Smiling.
All right. Thank you all so much. Look at all those happy faces out there. You all take care. Hi, Miss Doris. Oh my God. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much.